Alright guys, TJHaLy here today, and I want to talk through my top 5 players from week 2 of the CWL Pro League, and as suggested before, we're going to do it in a Team of the Week format. So Scuff have done this for ages, but no one else was really doing it, so I thought instead of top 5 players, someone suggested I should do a Team of the Week, 1 ICR, 2 Maddox, 2 SAUGs, or 2 SMGs. Who knows what the meta is going to be in a couple weeks time, given the changes that were announced yesterday, the weapon tuning updates. I'll leave the video that discusses that down in the description box below. But let's talk through my top 5 players, kind of not necessarily top 5, but, you know, considering roles, I think this is fair. Definitely a few honourable mentions in here. I thought Scuff did a really good job with their one this week, so if you haven't seen it yet, I'll mention it at the end of the video, and it is, well, eerily similar. So, like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, and let's start off with Maux here of GenG. So, of course, they closed out the top seed in Division A. They're going to be the top seed going into CWL Fort Worth as well. 6-1, they only lost to Midnight on the final day, so definitely one of their players at least surely deserved a mention. Now, Maux was really good in the first week here. These are his stats, courtesy of EasyMac. These are the stats over the first 2 weeks of play. Absolutely spectacular, of course. When we go into more detail on his stats in the second week, this is what we see right here. So the last few days against LG, UYU, Optic and Midnight, he had a spectacular series overall. And yeah, Maux really deserved this spot. I think Rated deserves an honourable mention to some degree as well, considering he was really good for Red Reserve. When I choose this list, I try and base it off, you know, players of teams that have also done well, because if a guy has been going off but the team has still been losing, then to some degree it's like, well, how much was he contributing to the actual victory, you know? So I try and lean towards teams that have done better here. Rated could definitely be a good mention for this one, but I think Maux, especially his week, you know, his first week was very good, as you can see up here, and his second week was, well, even better. And I'll leave EasyMac's Twitter in the description box below. So yeah, this is a nice little table he's constructed of the week 2 stats. The averages on the right refers to, well, the average of the week 1 and the week 2 stats, so you can see to some degree whether he was better than week 1 or worse than week 1. But yeah, his S&D this week was really something special, and I always felt that if there was ever going to be GenG on the back foot in a hard point, Maux would always be the one to get streaks and get them back into the game. He did that numerous times this week. Wasn't as spectacular in control, but, you know, they're pretty damn good at that mode anyway. But S&D he was spectacular with. A lot of players have shown that it's really difficult to be very good with the ICR in this game, and Maux showed a very competent level this week, and Parzelion, who was my ICR pick last week, he showed a similar thing. So yeah, the ICR isn't an easy gun to use by any means, especially on a LAN environment with people flying in your face, but Maux showed up very big this week, and that S&D really propelled them, you know. They're all super good at search and destroy, but Maux was the standout for me this week as the ICR. So for the first Maddox, we have to give it to Gunless, man. LG had a 3-in-1 week. They really brought themselves back, and yeah, very impressive indeed. Gunless, of course, once again the standout. We will mention another Luminosity player later in this video, but, you know, surely Gunless deserves a mention right here. He was going off in every mode, of course. These are the stats over the 2 weeks so far. But looking particularly at the week 2 stats, this is kind of what we have for every single series. Keep in mind here that this February the 12th, this was actually a 3-2 victory. So LG went 3-1 on the final week. The final week of the first split, that is, and they lost 3-2 to GenG, which is perfectly understandable given their search and destroy. They beat EG in a close one, and then he was unbelievable against Midnight and Optic Gaming. Clutching all sorts of rounds, just, yeah, his communication was pretty stellar, and the way he played against Midnight especially was spectacular. And Optic Gaming, of course, he had that play towards the end where he managed to get streaks and clutch up, and yeah, okay, they played that last round a little scummy. They were sitting back there spawn with the sniper's nest, but, you know, hey-ho, blame the game, not the player, right? Nearly dropped 100 kills versus Optic, very influential in all maps of that game. And yeah, let's have a look in more detail at these statistics here. So Search and Destroy was a real spectacular one for him. Of course, the OBJ stuff, this is like kills per round as well. So, you know, 0.8 kills per round in Search and Destroy is nothing to be sniffed at all. His hardpoint is dead even, considering they haven't been, you know, fantastic in hardpoint overall. But yeah, in week 2, his Search and Destroy and the control particularly was pretty spectacular. And the way he was able to get streaks and really clutch up at the important moments was what sets Gunless apart, I believe, in one of these Maddox roles. Now, next up, I think we have to give props to Mayhem, because this guy could have definitely got a slot in the very first week. But in this week 2, he was equally good. We'll have a look through the stats in just a second here. Wow, this guy was going off. So the first week we see a 1.4, 1.7. He had a really rough series against Midnight to end the first week. And that's why I didn't put him in my top 5 players of last week, just because, okay, he was going off, but when it came to playing the good team, you know, he really struggled. This week UYU went 2-2. I thought that was a reasonable enough level to say that Mayhem deserves his props right here, because he just was really good in all these series. Even their 3-0 defeat to Red Reserve, he was playing very well. His control has been traditionally spectacular, and in the series they won, I mean, they lost to GenG and Red Reserve, very solid teams. They beat EG and Team Reciprocity, and yeah, he crushed it in both of those ones. So yeah, in that Maddox role right now, Mayhem has to be a player you've got to consider, because he is hard carrying UYU through a lot of these series right now, and with Methods dropping off his game slightly this week from week number 1, Mayhem still kept up to the plate, so I thought he deserved at least a mention right here. As I say, his control is spectacular, arguably the best control player in the league. He was doing this in week 1 as well. Week 2 was no exception, and when you're up against UYU in control, you really have to fear for this guy, because you know he's going to get streaks at some point. You know he's going to pop a crazy 3-piece at some point. And yeah, control is about pure slaying, of course, for the most part. And well, Mayhem doesn't lack any of that at all. And in kills per round in Search and Destroy, he is even eclipsing the Gunless stats we just had a look at. So you can't really say anything negative against this guy right now. He's been playing spectacularly. And yeah, I would suggest the real shining light of that UYU team. One alternative here could have been to mention TJ. So these were his stats over the last week. TJ was pretty damn good against Red Reserve, and yeah, he popped that crazy 4-piece that you guys might remember. But yeah, I didn't think his stats overall were spectacular. So if you guys were suggesting TJ for the list, then definitely a reasonable suggestion. But I thought that Mayhem and Gunless probably deserved it a little bit more this week. But TJ can definitely be an honourable mention in there, because he played very well. So now we have in the SMG roles, Zero, first of all. This is an absolute no-brainer. This is definitely the most solid pick on the list. Zero was unbelievably good this week. We'll have a look at the stats in a second, and especially his difference between week 1 and week 2 is really what makes this stand out. And we'll see in a second that both of my picks for the SMG roles in the team of the week are players that have improved drastically. So maybe that'll give you a little bit of a clue here, but Zero was spectacular. We've all known at this point that around that 18-wheeler area on Gridlock, he does not lose a gunfight. And yeah, look at these stats, man. This is mind-boggling. The first week they played 4 matches. He was, relatively decent, but they went 2-2 for the week. Didn't have a spectacular series. The only one he really did well against was Midnight, and he had a couple of occasional Search and Destroys he did well. The stats for this week were on another level right here. He really stepped up his game. It's super difficult to be an SMG in this game, and to drop a 1.3 against Optic Gaming even when you lose is pretty spectacular indeed. He was really good against EG, and then he did his job against UYU, put it that way. So I thought Zero definitely deserved a mention right here. These are the stats overall. He was popping a 1.56 in Search and Destroy, and his control was really good as well. Hardpoint always tends to be a struggle, because you've got way more kills and deaths to consider, so it's hard to keep up a high KD over a lot of games. But also, as the SMG player, you tend to be the bait. And yeah, he was doing really well in Search and Destroy, really good at using those gravity slams. And yeah, on that control, that 1.3, I'm sure a lot of those statistic lines come from around that 18-wheeler area, where he's just popping 2 pieces left, right and centre, and he's making the defense really get themselves in a muddle. So Zero definitely deserved a spot, I thought, as an SMG. And the final spot is a very interesting one indeed. Now, I'm going to go with Slacked on this one, but I think his teammate John definitely deserves a mention here when we have a look at the stats in just a second, because the reason why I'm going to go with Slacked is just to give credit to the guy to some degree for coming back from how he was performing at the start of the week, and also due to the fact that he really stepped up overall in week 2 compared to week 1. I think in terms of overall stats though, John also could deserve a mention right here, and I think John's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, because he was actually very solid in this past week, but Slacked, because he was, feeling so much heat, and he had 2 really good series to close the week, I think maybe Slacked should just be edged, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. So to have a look at Slacked's stats real quick, the first week was super tough, of course. 0.75, 0.88, slightly improved. The first 2 series of the week, they did lose to GenG. I do want to mention they did actually beat EG here. Easy Mac, this is a slight mistake on the spreadsheet. Didn't have the best of times, but against Midnight and Optic Gaming, he was super good, and the eye test will tell you that he was playing much better. Also in Search and Destroy as well. One of the reasons why I thought I'd go with Slacked here over John was that John's S&D wasn't fantastic. sporadic, but Slacked really did take over a couple of these S&D games. You know, it was like 12-6, I think, that final map against Opta Gaming, something like that. Really putting in a shift, and yeah, very respectable play from him indeed. These are the overall stats. So yeah, from week 2, you had a 1.15, 1.16. As I'm saying, you can compare these to like a Maddox player, and it's not looking great, or, you know, to the best Maddoxes in the league or something. But as an SMG, you really have to respect these kind of numbers. Doesn't have the best KPR in S&D. So let's have a look at John real quick here. So these were John's overall stats for the first couple of weeks. This is what he's looking like for the last couple of weeks, and as you can see right here, yeah, 1.07, 1.05, 1.27, 1.17. So he was very, very consistent this week in terms of his statistics, and I also think that his control is really spectacular, and his frequency in particular. I think that Slacked really got a lot of the credit, but whenever they played frequency, John was always playing super well around that, you know, the elevator area, I think they call it. John had like a 33-19 map, I believe, and he was playing really, really well. So I think John definitely deserves a mention right here. Yeah, he doesn't have the best S&D KD, but this hardpoint and control in particular was really spectacular. And also the plays he was making consistently on frequency were definitely, I think, flew under the radar a little bit this week. So either of those players, I think, could be the second SMG. I'm tempted to go with Slacked due to, you know, the difficult situation he had in the first week, the kind of comeback, and yeah, to give him a bit of credit because he doesn't always get a lot of love on this team. So this is the same lineup that Scuff Team of the Week went with also. So they went with Gunless, Mayhem, Maux, Slacked, and Zero. So yeah, Mayhem and Gunless as the Maddoxes. I definitely think that's very well argued. Maux maybe rated, could also be mentioned in there for the AR. And then yeah, Zero definitely for the SMG. Slacked could maybe be the one to swap out here. I do think John deserves more credit than he got this week, but I definitely think this is a very reasonable Team of the Week. So yes, before we finish, let's go on to the Division A final standings here. GenG topped the list. Now these aren't final standings. This is the final standings after the first 2 weeks. And then we will have Division B starting on Monday the 18th, which is tomorrow. And well, after all that, a couple of weeks time, then we will have Fort Worth, and then there will be crossplay, and yeah, I'll talk about that more down the line. But these are the final standings for Division A. These are the Division B teams, and in just a second here, let's have a look at the matches that are going to be played this week. Here we have it. So starting with Heretics versus E United and Envy versus 100 Thieves on the Monday. That's going to start at, well, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. GMT. You can see the figures on the right here are the start times in GMT, so -5 for Eastern Time, or do whatever time zone you guys are watching this video in. So 2 games on day 1, then we have 4 games on day 2, which are these ones, 4 games on day 3, 4 games on day 4. Should be a very exciting week. Going to be very difficult, I think, to predict how good these teams are going to be right now, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. So like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.
Behind you, teammate. They're so clueless.
Enemy holds the hard point. Hard point is secure. Hard point is being overrun. Need reinforcements.
He's got the gun
Flush out the
royally.
enemy. Hard point locked down. Bombing mission ready.
Oh my god, I've shot him.
Information.
Oh my god, I'm actually going
Hardpoint is
off.
being overrun. Need reinforcements. Hardpoint is being overrun. Need reinforcements.
I'm fucking going.